In the headlines, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo arrives in Guyana on Thursday, and businesses are keen on prospects for investments and partnerships. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Mansour Nadir, again denies the APNU-AFC opposition to ask questions surrounding the historical visit of U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
I maintain my position that the question submitted does not qualify as urgent.
How much more urgent can this be? How much more urgent can this be, we ask?
14 parliamentary employees test positive for COVID-19, along with staff from Scotiabank and the Labour Ministry. Foreign Minister Hugh Todd says the government will rebuild broken relationships with foreign partners. The Amerindian Affairs Ministry is supporting indigenous cooks during the COVID-19 pandemic. And in sports, CPL has set the trend for global sport events in pandemic, says Tournament Operations Director. With the news, I'm Kurt Campbell. We're glad you could join us. First up, the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo arrives in Guyana Thursday evening. Ahead of his visit, local businesses are upbeat about the prospects for investments and partnerships. As Neil Marks reports, preparations are in full swing to ensure Guyana secures a more solid partnership with the U.S. government.
If Guyanese did not know Mike Pompeo, they certainly got to know him in the spectacular events that unfolded after the March 2nd elections. The third most powerful man in the U.S. government insisted that for there to be continued fruitful collaboration between the United States and Guyana, a government needed to be formed from a legitimate electoral process. And when a national recount was undertaken, he insisted that the government had to come from the results of that process. Just a month and a half after that process concluded, Mike Pompeo is ready to touch down in Guyana. He's serious about upping that cooperation between Guyana and the United States. Mike Pompeo is the highest-ranking U.S. government official to ever visit Guyana, and so apart from the billboards welcoming him, the streets are getting a much-needed patch-up. And of course, the American flag flutters along the route he's expected to travel once he gets to Georgetown.
Well, I will say it's extremely important because we are working towards strengthening our relations with our partners. And of course, the U.S. is a very important and key partner of Guyana. Secretary Pompeo himself has been very vocal on our democracy issues. So I think it's very timely, this visit. There are many issues globally, regionally, that occupy our individual and collective attention. So I think his visit, it is a key time, especially when as a country we are exploring various initiatives in accessing capital, in ensuring that we can have capital that is not only accessible, but that is, for the want of a better word, cheap capital or low interest capital. We also have a transformative agenda that we want all to be involved with. So the U.S. also plays a strong role in the region. So I think it's very important and timely that we have a conversation surrounding all these issues.
Mike Pompeo was a central figure in the recent protracted electoral process and made no bones about how the U.S. felt revoking the visas of 2 batches of key government officials of the then APNU plus AFC coalition, as a firm indication that the U.S. government would not tolerate electoral rigging if Guyana expected U.S. dollars to flow here for developmental projects. With the dust settled on the electoral process and a legitimate government in place, U.S. businesses are eager to get into Guyana.
Actually, since our elections have been sorted out and a new government has been in place, we have gotten countless, I would say hundreds of emails of expressions of interest in Guyana from American businesses. And I'm speaking about small companies to big Fortune 500 companies who have all expressed a willingness to come to Guyana to invest. They would like to know more about Guyana. And I think it's just a matter of time. They're waiting. All of the questions stems from when is the airport going to open.
The Guyana Manufacturing and Services Association is also keen on what the visit of Mike Pompeo holds for Guyana.
As president of the Guyana Manufacturing and Services Association, I believe that this visit, this historic visit, is happening at a very strategic time for Guyana. As you know, we are really poised for economic takeoff. So many positive things are happening, and there is a bright future for our country. You know, we certainly would like to see the strengthening of this strategic partnership between Guyana and the United States, and to explore how we can further enhance opportunities for collaboration, especially in the area of business development.
The U.S. State Department has said Mike Pompeo's trip will highlight the United States' commitment to defend democracy, combat COVID-19 while revitalizing economies in the pandemic's wake and strengthening security against regional threats. Mike Pompeo arrives in Guyana on Thursday evening. He will touch down at the Chadijagan International Airport at Temeri and head straight to Georgetown, where he will have dinner with President Irfan Ali. It is expected to be a working dinner. In the morning, Secretary Pompeo will meet with the Foreign Minister Hugh Todd, and following that meeting, there will be the signing of some agreements between Guyana and the United States. We're not exactly clear on what will flow out of those agreements. Following the signing ceremony, there will be a press conference with Mr. Pompeo and President Ali. And of course, we will have those details here on the newsroom. I'm Neil Marks reporting in Georgetown.
We tell you now that Speaker of the National Assembly Manzoor Nadir, for the second time on Wednesday, denied questions put forward by the parliamentary opposition on the scheduled visit of U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. His ruling did not sit well with opposition leader Joseph Harman, who has described it as unreasonable. Speaker of the National Assembly Manzoor Nadir had cause to deny oral questions without notice that were put forward by opposition leader Joseph Harman on Tuesday. But shortly after those questions were denied, the APNU-AFC opposition filed questions again on the visit by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, insisting that the government must publicize the reason and agenda for the visit. The Speaker, in denying the questions for the second time on Wednesday, said that the questions submitted do not qualify as urgent.
2 days ago, we had an oral question without notice submitted by the Honourable Member Ms. Walton Desir. Yesterday, I ruled on that question. Yesterday also, the question was resubmitted by the Honourable Member Mr. Christopher Jones. Again today, I ruled that under Standing Order 18, it requires that questions without notice have two elements: urgency and importance, or it relates to the business of the day. I maintain my position that the question submitted does not qualify as urgent. It is important, but not qualified as urgent, and so I am not allowing that question.
Harman has rejected the Speaker's ruling and insists that the government must give assurances ahead of Pompeo's visit that Guyana's interests will not be compromised. Appearing on the APNU-AFC's live Facebook page after the Speaker's ruling, Harman said the opposition requires to know what matters will be discussed during Pompeo's visit and felt that Parliament was the best place to make those inquiries.
Now, what can be more urgent than this? We have a visit of the highest ranking member of the United States administration ever to visit Guyana. Today is the 16th. Tomorrow is the 17th. How much more urgent can this be? How much more urgent can this be, we ask? The Speaker, in his wisdom, decided it was not urgent enough. This is bad for the people of Guyana. The people of Guyana will not accept this kind of behavior. We require to know what are the matters which are going to be discussed. And the question, in our view, was urgent enough and important enough.
The opposition wants to know the details of the program and agenda and matters for discussion for the visit. The Foreign Affairs Minister to identify Guyana's key interests and non-negotiable policies as they relate to Venezuela, and whether the administration can guarantee the people of Guyana that their national interests will not be compromised. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation has released a statement saying that Pompeo's visit will highlight the United States' commitment to defend democracy, combat COVID-19 while revitalizing economies and strengthen security against regional threats. The agenda for the visit of Secretary of State Pompeo includes a congratulatory meeting with the newly elected President Irfan Ali and his cabinet, meeting with CARICOM Secretary General Oren LaRocque. He will reinforce the promise of value-based U.S. partnership, highlighting opportunities for more responsible and transparent private sector investment to increase prosperity for the people of Guyana, particularly in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Foreign Ministry noted. Kurt Campbell, Newsroom. The Minister of Labour, Joseph Hamilton, has announced that an employee from the Cooperatives Department of the Ministry has tested positive for COVID-19. A statement from the ministry noted that the list of names and contact information for the affected employees were submitted to the surveillance unit of the Ministry of Health, and all members of staff of the Co-ops department will be in quarantine for 7 days. The minister further advised that all COVID-19 protocols are currently being enforced and will be closely monitored to ensure full compliance in keeping with the requirements of the Ministry of Health and the International Labour Organization to prevent the further spread of the disease. This includes sanitization of the department. 14 employees of the Parliament office have tested positive for COVID-19. This disclosure was made by Speaker of the National Assembly Mansour Nadir at the start of Wednesday's sitting, where he noted that over 100 employees were swabbed for the disease after he and others tested positive.
The clerk had arranged that all members of the the Parliament staff be tested. Today I want to update you on the results of those tests. We have, out of 126 samples taken, 14 members of staff have proven to be positive. The clerk has taken the necessary action since the test to ensure that our staff has been provided with the supplements and the necessary protocols pending the results of their tests. Of the 14 persons who are positive, he is currently making arrangements to ensure that we can look after the good health of our parliamentary staff. Please bear with us as the COVID-19 is beginning to take its toll on the members of the staff of the Parliament.
The management of Scotiabank has taken a decision to temporarily close its Carmichael Street branch until further notice after one of its employees tested positive for COVID-19. In a notice, the company said enhanced protocols have been implemented following the positive test results. According to Scotiabank, the employee has been quarantined since exhibiting symptoms and is now under the medical supervision of the Ministry of Health. Scotiabank is urging its customers to use its online platform to conduct business. When the newsroom returns, Foreign Minister Hugh Todd says government will rebuild broken relationships with foreign partners, and IFLOT factory workers down tools. Welcome back, you're watching the newsroom. Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation Hugh Todd on Wednesday used this maiden presentation in the National Assembly to rap the former coalition government for its failure on foreign policy and international relations. He said the new PPP government will rebuild those broken relationships with foreign partners. Speaking during the ongoing budget debates, Foreign Minister Hugh Todd said the APNU-AFC administration used its last 2 years in government to dismantle political, economic and social structures, both locally and abroad, bringing mayhem to bear on the country. He recalled that the APNU-AFC administration held on to power illegally when it failed to call elections after a no-confidence motion was successfully passed in the National Assembly against the government in December 2018. But with a new government in place, the foreign minister said Guyanese can expect a rebuilding of the good relationships that were broken with international partners because of the illegitimacy of the government at the time, coupled with its poor foreign policy.
If you recall, Mr. Speaker, under the Granger-led administration, they have weakened the structures to the point that our sovereignty was fragile. We were exposed territorially because we lacked capacity to negotiate and win and maintain friendships and partnerships within the region and beyond. So, Mr. Speaker, we are in a position now that democracy is restored to use the resources available to us to ensure that we put sovereignty and our territorial integrity back in its rightful place so that we can ensure that we keep this country preserved, not for ourselves only, but for those to come in the future.
Todd told the House that the APNU-AFC is now in the opposition because they lacked competence and efficiency to get the job done, but noted that the new PPPC government will restore the vigor in the foreign ministry and put it back on the regional and world map. Todd said too that from all indications, the coalition lacked the capacity to negotiate, win and maintain friendships and partnerships in the region and further afield.
All they did was trips around the world for fun. Photo ops on private jets. Mr. Speaker, coming back to Guyana with nothing to say but attendance. Attendance does not help the people of Guyana. You have to come back with workable solutions that will help to improve our national policies and national development.
The foreign minister said the PPP government is preparing for massive growth and development and has a strategy in place for the next 5 years that aligns itself with its elections manifesto. A number of workers attached to the iFlood factory on the west coast of Demerara dung tools Wednesday morning to protest the growing inefficient functioning of the factory. The Guyana Agricultural Workers Union GAWU reported. The union said the workers belong to both GAWU and NASI. Workers reported that muddied canes are being delivered to the factory because of a non-functioning washing system, which removed to a great extent the mud. Apart from that, GAWU said the factory is suffering from severe and several defects. The union stated that it had earlier warned that at iFlood no spares were procured and worn-out components were lubricated and reinstalled during the mid-year out-of-crop period. The workers said they have raised these issues with several managers, but nothing was done. According to GAWU, iFlood is now in its 5th week of operations and has already seen 168 hours lost due to breakdown. Minister of Public Service Sonia Parag on Wednesday said over $1 billion has been set aside in the 2020 budget for the award of scholarships for local and overseas students. The minister told the National Assembly during her budget debate presentation that the ministry has already received 700 applications in the past 3 weeks. Bibi Katoon reports.
The Ministry of Public Service was allocated $1,081,951,000 in this year's national budget. According to Subject Minister Sonia Parag, over $1 billion of that sum was allocated to the award of scholarships to students across the 10 administrative regions, and thus far, 700 applications were already submitted. She was at the time making her presentation during the 2020 budget debates on Wednesday.
Now, if I am to compare 2019, where just over 500 scholarship applications were brought into the Ministry of Public Service, in just 3 weeks, we have been able to achieve over 700 applications from across the country. From Region 8, from the hinterland alone, we have 68 applications. And that is how, Mr. Speaker, we are able to give an equal opportunity to reflect the diversity of Guyana in our public service.
The minister was at the time responding to opposition member of parliament and former Minister of Public Service Tabitha Sarabuhali, who criticized the budget as one with no benefits for the young people.
After reading this budget speech, it became quite clear who will be prospering. The budget that we have before us, Mr. Speaker, is a private sector budget. Mr. Speaker, we are at a serious juncture in our nation's history. We are at a serious juncture in the nation's history. And we stand here day by day to debate a budget, Mr. Speaker, that is lacking.
The parliamentarians also clashed on the benefits for public servants. Whilst Rabel Hali criticized the PPPC government for not raising the threshold in its 2020 budget, Parag responded that this is the government's duty and will be done in the new year.
I read Budget 2020 with great intrigue. I looked to see if there was any indication of an increase for our public servants. So much ridicule and dissent was vocalized over the past 5 years by the honorable members on the other side about what public servants ought to be given. This, despite all we were able to accomplish. So I could not imagine a budget presented to the House without an attempt to match or even surpass what public servants received over the last 5 years through a substantive retroactive increase.
It is a fact, Mr. Speaker, that is so. But it is also a fact which has escaped her mind that it is an obligation of any government to take care of their public servants. And that is by increasing. It was done by the PPPC, it will be done again by the PPPC.
The People's Progressive Party government in its 2020 elections manifesto promised to issue 20,000 online scholarships and offer free education at the University of Guyana. Bibi Katon reporting for the newsroom.
Still ahead on the newsroom, Parliament asks for the caterer to investigate contaminated food, and the Amerindian Affairs Ministry is supporting indigenous cooks during the COVID-19 pandemic. You're watching the newsroom. Thank you for staying with us. Several parliamentarians reportedly fell ill on Monday after consuming food provided by the Parliament at the Arthur Chang Conference Centre, where the 2020 budget debate is ongoing. As a result, Speaker of the National Assembly Mansour Nadir on Wednesday said efforts are ongoing by the caterer to find what may have caused the reaction. On Tuesday, the Speaker upbraided a parliamentarian for a Facebook post in which he alleged that the APNU AFC members were poisoned.
The clerk and the spoke about the issue of the food that was served a few days ago. Subsequent to our discussion, the clerk and one of our honorable members met with the providers and had a long discussion. Several suggestions were made, and the caterer is currently trying to ascertain the cause of the contamination. Let me assure you that we are taking every step possible to eliminate a reoccurrence and to give you some answers as to what caused the effects on several members of the National Assembly, including members of the AFC APNU coalition, the Deputy Speaker, and members of the government.
The Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, is looking for ideas from citizens of the Caribbean to design the future of the region in a competition called Pivot Movement. The competition ends on September 18 with a $5,000 cash prize for 3 winners. The project is being undertaken by Carbon Climate Smart Accelerator, Singularly University and Destination Experience. The IDB will also host the Pivot event, a virtual conference between October 15 and 30, 2020, to flesh out the ideas and build on others. The newsroom's Neil Mark spoke with Raquel Moses, CEO of Carbon Climate Smart Accelerator.
So thank you very much for talking with us today. So this is called the Pivot Movement, and you're looking for innovative ideas to move the Caribbean forward. Tell me, what is the Pivot Movement, first of all?
Sure. So the Pivot Movement is what we hope to be an inflection point for the Caribbean, the point from which we decided to pursue innovation full force, where we got all of the best ideas together from all of our regional innovators and from from students, from adults, from everywhere, to be able to envision a brand new Caribbean.
So I understand that there are 3 themes that you're looking for ideas under. Talk to me about those.
So the 3 themes that we're looking for ideas under are electromobility, so electric vehicles, digital transformation, so anything technological related, and then tourism, so reimagining what tourism looks like in the region. So those are the 3 major themes that we're looking for ideas under.
Why are you saying you're looking for ideas? I understand that you're not looking for a big project proposal or anything of that sort.
No, we essentially were asking for 500 words and either a picture or a video describing your idea. What we will work with, so if it's a fully developed idea where you have a prototype, that's amazing. But if you have a concept that you think could revolutionize the way that we do things in the region, that would work just as well also. We are really looking for what are the best ideas that are existing now that have the ability to transform the Caribbean and to produce for us a brighter future. So it doesn't have to be fully baked yet. You don't need to have been working on this for the last 10 years of your life. We're just looking for the best ideas.
And tell me, who are the people behind this pivot movement?
Sure. So it's certainly it's being led by the IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank, the Caribbean Climate Smart Accelerator, the organization that I lead. We are partners. Destination Experience is also a partner, and Singularity University. And they have sort of honed the way of developing moonshot ideas, are also a partner.
Which is what you have to explain to me. What is moonshot ideas?
So when the Americans envisioned landing on the moon, that was a moonshot. That was a huge transformational idea that they pursued, and it changed the way that they thought about not only those kinds of endeavors, but it changed the way that they thought about themselves. And that's the kind of thing that we are looking for, an idea that is so big and audacious and almost scary, but it is something that we can pursue. And if we can get enough of those kinds of ideas together, we can really change the way that the Caribbean looks and feels.
And so why aren't you looking for these big shot technical people to put all of this together? Why are you sounding out this call for ideas?
I think that's a phenomenal question, and I love it. Because we know that we are all extraordinary people. And sometimes the biggest ideas come from the very simplest of places. And so we don't want to only look in the obvious places for these new ideas. And we want people to think through ideas, not necessarily because they're like, okay, I'm sure this is going to work, but the things that are long shots, because those are the places that we will really get some real innovation taking place. Sometimes the people who are overly technical, who have worked on things, they can tell you 100 ways something can't work. What we want are ideas that maybe have a slim chance, but those are the things that we want to be able to pursue. We want out-of-the-box thinking.
Great. And how can people submit their ideas?
They have to go to CaribbeanPivot.com. The competition closes on midnight on the 18th of September. So please go quickly. It's a very, very simple application process. There are 5 questions, and 4 of them are your name, your first and last name, your email address, and your phone number. So it's just a matter of putting in some details around your idea. Now, if you are able to make it to the next round, you have to be ready and available to present your idea and to tell us a little bit more about it, to tell us what are the things that you will need to be able to implement it. But definitely we want to be able to get those ideas coming in.
Thank you very much, Raquel. And of course, there are 3 winners of $5,000 each, correct?
Yes, in each of the areas, but there's also a chance, if you go to CaribbeanPivot.com, you also can attend the event where we build out these ideas and we work with all kinds of other ideas that will have been submitted. So don't just, if you don't have an idea, please, and you are an innovative thinker, please still go to CaribbeanPivot.com and apply to attend the event. We have very, very limited spaces, but it would be great to get some different perspectives in the event as we build out these ideas.
The COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way we do many things, including the way Indigenous Heritage Month is celebrated. But to ensure those vendors who ply their trade at the annual events are still supported, the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs is purchasing indigenous dishes and distributing them free of cost at the Ministry's Quamina Street, Georgetown building on Wednesdays. This is done at a portion of a $15 million budget set aside to celebrate Amerindian Heritage Month. The newsroom on Wednesday spoke with one of the vendors, 65-year-old Pamela English, who expressed gratitude to the ministry for the support and urged others to be safe during the pandemic.
My name is Pamela Solomon English. I am from Region 1, Hosororo. I'm very happy to, even though of the COVID, I had prepared everything at home alone, clear and distance myself from people coming or calling, and was able to prepare for the ministry, which I'm very thankful for. The previous years, we started from Guyana, then afterwards we went to the Sapphire Center, which more every year, myself and all I have other friends who that do catering, we became well known. This year, I made only the fly wine, and then I made the tumo lava and tumo bush cow. I had tumo fish lukanani at home. The fly is made from the potato called black potato, or some people call it purple potato. You boil it. After you wash it clean and so you cut it fine so you could boil quickly. You boil it. When you boil it, it becomes, to be surprised, it will become red. And then you leave it now, you sweeten it with the sugar, you leave it to ferment. Within 2 weeks, you'll be surprised to see how it turns a wine. And if you leave it further on, like 1 month, it becomes more strong. Very nice. Very nice. But the color, that is what is really, amazing to see how a potato boil and then it becomes red. From what even people call it as a city black potato or the purple potato, it becomes red. It's there in the bottle. So, and people like it. At the Sapphire Center, when we there, we usually walk with potato to show people what this is. And so it's amazing to see people want if it could fry, if it could cook, but no, I don't know what, it's just the potato to make the drink. How I pick it up is my parent, from my grandmother and my mom. Long time they used to make it at home, but they used to give us the drink sweet, like a drink, potato drink. But we never know that. Me then, as a child, I never know that it could go beyond ferment and become a wine. And that's the beauty of it. The tuna now is made from the cassava water. They have, when you grate the cassava, you put it in the matter pan. You see the water drain down. From that you get so many things. It drain down and then the water, we take it now and boil it. The real tuna is from when it boiled, they got a lovely froth at the top. Thick, you take out that. That is it, the thickness. And then afterwards, the water now, you got to know how to boil it and season it up. So I learned all of that from my mother, making the tuna. And you could put anything in the tuna. You could put the lava, you could put fish, you could put the cow, you could put the hog, you could put anything in the tuna. It is very nice. People like it with a lot of pepper, but all like me preparing for the ministry, I just put it mild because I don't know who wants pepper, who don't. Happy Heritage Month to all my brothers and sisters across the 10 regions. I wanted to say that they will keep the distance, listen, watch, and learn, because the pandemic going on now is very serious.
And that's it for me, Kurt Campbell, the financial, weather and bird reports, along with sport with Avinash Ramzan when the newsroom returns. Take care.
Welcome back to Newsroom. Now for a look at what's happening in sport. We're starting us off with some cricket news. We have set the trend. We made the template. That's the word of Tournament Operations Director of the Heroes CPL, Michael Hall. Appearing on the Mason and Guest radio show on Tuesday night, Hall said the tournament being held in the middle of a pandemic was a success. He also touched on costs and revenues as it relates to the tournament being held behind closed doors in one territory.
Preparation for next year's tournament probably begins, next week, Monday. Our senior group will sit down and look back at what happened, look and see how we can tweak things. We do that every year. And you know, I don't want to make it seem as we're complacent. But the truth of the matter is that there isn't a lot, I think, that needs to be changed. I don't think there's a lot that needs to be changed. Obviously, you know, the biggest learning experience this year for us was how to stage a tournament in the middle of a pandemic. I think the good news about that is, you know, if it's the will of the universe that COVID-19 is going to play a big part in our lives again next year this time, we are ahead of the curve. You know, we set a trend. We made the template for doing it, and I think that we will be in a much better place in terms of organizing for a tournament in a scenario like this. And it has also taught us, if we go back to normalcy, and we, you know, I alluded to it in the earlier part of the discussion, that perhaps we need to think about reducing things on the cost side of our equation by condensing the number of venues that the tournament is staged in. Clearly, on the cost side of the equation, we would not have, or we would have eliminated a lot of air travel. We would have not had to move broadcast equipment around to 6 different countries, or 2 different countries rather, because there would have normally be 2 sets of broadcast equipment in the region. So on the cost side of the equation, there were some savings, but you have to bear in mind that on the revenue side, we had a lot more. I wouldn't say a lot more, but we had more sponsorship partners on board. But you will appreciate that sponsors, particularly regional sponsors, get bang for their buck by way of fan interaction and activation of their products and services at the venues with fans. Mm-hmm. And, you know, with the games being played behind closed doors, whilst folks associated with the tournament, I suspect, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I suspect that the value of those sponsorships may have been reduced. Look, you know, I think both the league and the 6 individual franchises went into the tournament this year fully well that it was going to be, if not a financial bloodbath, then certainly it wasn't going to be anything to write about. But I think that collectively, and kudos to the franchise owners, we took a decision that it would be just too detrimental for the CPL brand to disappear for a year, as it were, if the tournament weren't held. It's a highly competitive, you know, environment, professional sports leagues, and we felt it was important to maintain the visibility of our brand. It's early yet to say what the financial outturn was and how the league and the individual franchises fared. I suspect that, if I can speak euphemistically, it wouldn't be the best year ever financially for the league or the franchises.
Now, rugby is a contact sport, and given the strict guidelines with regards to COVID-19, it is highly likely it will take longer to be given permission to resume activities as compared to non-contact sports. However, when such permission is granted, the Guyana Rugby Football Union President, Ryan Day, indicated they will look to start the version of tag rugby. Akeem Green reports.
Tag rugby is a minimal contact game in which each player wears shorts with 2 tags attached to them. Basically, instead of the robust tackles or close contact, a simple tap suffices. According to Day, not only will this be a gradual restart to rugby when permission is granted, but also a way to attract new faces.
That's our first play. We are going to start tag rugby first as a means of introducing new people to rugby, so people can also see that rugby is not, you know, that it starts out as tag and then it goes into contact. So that's our way in which we can have other people join in rugby.
In June, World Rugby released their return to play protocols, which were tailored to be in line with respective countries' evolving rules on handling the pandemic. From a local union, they said they are putting plans in place to safeguard their players.
Right now we're trying to find safer ways to actually play rugby. We're trying to get some some apps. There's an app that you can use to regulate, to track your COVID symptoms as well. We're trying to get some sports masks as well. So anybody that comes in to play rugby, they will be safe. And also people who are already in rugby, they can be safe while playing rugby. And we can help stop the spread of this COVID-19.
But while the union puts plans in place, the president said it is simply a waiting game before anything on the field can be done.
We've been in contact with Rand also. We have meetings here regularly. But right now, when it comes to getting back to rugby, it's a kind of waiting game. As you said, it's a contact sport, and you know, this COVID-19 spreads with contact, human contact, so we have to be social distancing most of the time. So when it comes to moving forward with rugby, we will have to wait to see what the Ministry of Health and the COVID task force has to say about that. But in the meanwhile, we're trying our best to keep our men as fit as possible and help in every way possible.
Rugby America's North Sevens tournament, originally slated for later this year, was cancelled. The tournament was scheduled for November in the Bahamas. For the newsroom, Akim Green.
And West Indies women's all-rounder Hayley Matthews is keen on contributing to the team's overall performance rather than achieving personal milestones. Matthews is in sight of a few personal achievements in the upcoming 5-match T20 series against host England. She spoke to Windies Cricket Media about the series.
Welcome back to another edition of the Maroon Capsule. Hayley Matthews, life in the bubble here in Derby in the UK, getting acclimated. How has it been for you so far?
Yeah, I think it's been pretty good actually. You know, after not being together as a team for such a long time, I think the girls are pretty happy with each other's company, and just, you know, being happy to be back out in the nets, you know, getting in a lot of hard work and playing the sport that we all love.
Couple milestones possibly achievable for you in this series: 1,000 T20 runs, 50 T20 wickets. Those playing on your mind in terms of performances?
I don't think necessarily. I think coming in here I have one goal, and that's to help the team as best as I can. It's something that I've wanted to be doing for the last 5 years since I've started playing for West Indies, and I think those milestones probably come about while playing for the team. So of course there's stuff that you definitely look forward to when they do come along, but I think the team goal always comes first, and it helps to bring those.
I mean, you're familiar with English conditions. How are you going to use that to your advantage to get the team to victory?
Yeah, I think probably having the camp here for the last month especially really helps us out a lot. You know, the girls are kind of trying to make this into our own little home ground that we can call it. You know, just hoping that we can get really accustomed to these conditions before the first game. And yeah, so that when we get out there, we're really able to push hard and, you know, hopefully get the series off to a good start.
And Khalifa Hale, a cadet officer of the Guyana Prison Service, said avenues must be created for the country's sporting talents to be nurtured. Hale, in a video message, called on stakeholders to invest in sport, says it will result in a reduction in crime. The sport administrator pointed to the many cases of young men behind bars whose talents are wasted because of a lack of structure.
My name is Khalifa here, and I'm a cadet officer from the Guyana Prison Service. I've been in the Guyana Prison Service for about 10 years, and during this time I've had the responsibility for sports, and I am a member also of the Joint Service Sports Committee. Now, during this time within the prison service, I've come to realize that there are a lot of young people who are in prison, but also have a talent in sports, be it cricket, be it football, be it basketball, chess, and so forth. And there is no avenue for these persons to actually put their talent into, whereby they can earn on a regular basis. Now, I began to look on the outside of the prison. I've seen a lot of athletes who have the potential, but over a period of time, that desire would have faded because of the same issue. There isn't much economical benefits attached to it on a regular basis. So now I begin to ponder, how can we resolve this issue? How can we create a system that could create thousands of jobs for Guyanese? An initiative like this will see the reduction in crime. It will see that young people will now have the opportunity to take their talent into the wider market, to show it to the world with an initiative like this. It is you, the investors, who will make this initiative possible. Because your investment will change the lives of a lot of Guyanese in the various sports, and you will be in a position to earn from that. Because there are a lot of talent in Guyana, and persons are there just waiting for an avenue to showcase that talent, just waiting for a reason to showcase that talent. And if that reason is economical, you will find that they will have a greater commitment to the sports, because now they will know that, hey, I could put food on the table for my kids, I could put food on the table for myself, and my talent could take me abroad. Be it in cricket, be it in football, be it in basketball, whatever the discipline is. This is an initiative for Guyana. This is an initiative for Guyanese. This initiative will have a lot of benefits to this country, to the citizens, and it will bring in foreign exchange. Because we all know that Guyanese are talented, and we do have the potential to be great.
And with that, we've come to the end of the news for this evening. Of course, you can find updates on these and other stories on our website, newsroom.gy, our Facebook page, and Instagram. On behalf of the entire news team, I'm Apanash Ramzan. Thanks for watching. Be safe. See you next time.